a regular drill. It hits the screw with this impact over and over and over and over, and it jiggles it loose. I have to get me one of these. Here is the port side lower shroud connection. It's got a nut there that interestingly has a hole drilled through it and through the bolt for this cotter pin. On the starboard side, there's just the bolt. So I'm going to take the cotter pin out and then use wrenches to take the nut off and then take the bolt out, and that will remove the lower shrouds. 1, 2 on each side. Okay, here's a starboard lower shrouds, 2 lower shrouds here connected to this one thing there. I took the nut off on the other side with the cotter pin, and then I turned this bolt and took this thing out of the mast right there. Interestingly enough, it appears that this bolt had a metal tube put over it that I can't seem to get off. But because that tube is there, I can't slide the bolt tube through this thing here. So it's just there it is. That's off. And there's the shroud. You can see there's some seizing wire on the end there. This is an impact driver. My friend just let me borrow it, and it took these flathead screws out no problem. It's interesting how it works. It's not like a regular drill. It hits the screw with this impact over and over and over and over, and it jiggles it loose. I have to get me one of these. Interesting to note here on this stack pack block on the port side of the mast towards the top there, these are not bolts, they're little screws. So maybe that's not right, and it needs to be tapped so we can use bolts instead of screws. Okay, here's the top of the mast, and here is the jib furler. I can see that it is held on by this clevis pin right here. Clevis pin right here, so all I got to do is take the cotter pin out right there, pop that through right here, and then I'll be able to attach this. By the way, I just think it's amazing that the only thing that needs to fail here is that little cotter pin. If that little cotter pin rusts, breaks, comes apart in any way, and if this clevis pin works its way free, then the whole jib head sail comes down. It all depends on that one little pin there. If that fails, the whole jib comes down, and under sail, that means the whole mast comes down probably. took this off, and I can see corrosion in there, which is not good. Wonder how badly that interferes with VHF reception. Mark was just here. That clevis pin that's stuck in there, he got a brass hammer called Thor. He said we have to use brass because if we use a regular hammer, it'll hurt the clevis pin. And we got a flamethrower thing to heat that up, and then we're going to take a breaker bar to it. And it comes off like that. This is the fitting for the staysail. It's held on by these flathead bolts. I got the bolts out here, and I'm about to take out the last one. It's amazing that being able to be hove to is all dependent on these 8 bolts. The bolts look like this. Okay, that's a acetylene torch that mixes oxygen and something else to make super flame that comes out of there, and we're going to use it to take that bolt out, which is just too fused. I guess it heats it up so much that it gets to be very red hot. Phonograph. This is the nut that's going to come out. Well, we got that bolt out. Randy came out with an oxygen torch welding thing and superheated the aluminum mast around there and got it out. It's intact. We're going to replace that bolt anyway. And I think we're going to make a new tube to fit the bolt because I don't think we can get the bolt out of the tube. It's just fused. The tubes there, I learned to prevent you from tightening the nut and the bolt too much and crushing the mast when you're doing that. Here's the OGM tricolor anchor light, and it goes to here. And the plan is to replace this wire, which only has 2 wires in it, with another one that has either 3 or 4, so that I can get this light to use its strobe function as well as anchor light. B, C, D, and come over here, E, and then you can Okay, we've got almost everything off of the mast, a few more things to go. I think now it's time to start taking a good look at the corrosion on here and getting some advice. Like I see bubbling right here, bubbling and chipping right here at the base of the mast. Here's where it got scraped down to the bare aluminum and something scraped here. I think that's from being on the sawhorse. More bubbling. And then up here, looks like they painted it up to here from the deck maybe, and this is just like, I don't know, you can see that the paint is just worn away and it's down to the aluminum. Continuing up the mast, you can see there's lots of exposed aluminum. Continuing on, much of the same thing. Right here, this is where the spreader went, and you see lots of exposed aluminum there and chipping paint and bubbling. Continuing up, the mast, much of the same thing. Here's where we had to use an acetylene torch to heat it up so that I could get the bolt out. The bolt for the lower shrouds. You can see in here the sail track and all the paint's worn away, lots of exposed aluminum, rust right here. I'm wondering if I should take these privets out so that I can get this tri-sail track off. Seems to be quite a bit of chip paint and corrosion right up to it. Continuing up the mast, you can see this exposed aluminum everywhere. Well, the paint's just worn away. This is the original paint from long ago. A lot of the fittings that came off the mast just have this white polysulfide. I don't know if that's what's recommended nowadays. So there's where we used, on the other side, we used an acetylene torch to get the bolt out of there. And on top of the mast, there's no paint left. I don't see any zinc chromate. So that's what we got. Today's November 14th, 2011, and I am at the Sailcraft Services Boatyard in Oriental, North Carolina. I'll give you a little look around here. Up there, that's Mark up in the lift. He's the rigger. He's checking out the mast of the boat that's parked right over there. Sailcraft not only has a full machine shop and a whole bunch of painting professionals and carpenters and electricians, they also let boat owners bring their boats here and work on them themselves. And today's a really big day for me because right over here, this is my mast for my Westsail 42, which I have just finished painting. Different yards gave me different price quotes on painting it, anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000, and I can't afford that, so I did it myself. Just a little overview of the process that I went through to paint it. It was a lot of work. I took 100% of all the hardware off. I took the spreaders off, I took the winches off, I took a tri-sail track off that goes almost the whole length of the mast. A really difficult part was right here. There was a big bolt that went through there with a spacer thing inside. The spacer prevents you from crushing the mast when you're tightening the nuts down on the bolt. The bolts are used for the shrouds. The problem was the spacer inside had corroded so badly that they were practically impossible to remove. I had to use an acetylene torch to unfuse the bolt and get it out of there. Sanded 100% of all the old paint off. Then I scrubbed it with a Scotch-Brite and Ajax. Then I rinsed it, and the next step was bathing the entire mast in a two-part solution called iodine. The iodine reacts with the rust in the little crevices. Then I bathed it again in a different two-part solution called Alumaprep. The Alumaprep removes the iodine. Then I painted the whole thing in a two-part solution called zinc chromate. The zinc chromate is yellow in color, and it creates a layer over the aluminum, the bare aluminum, that acts to prevent corrosion from happening again, especially where you have hardware attached to the mast made of a dissimilar metal, like stainless. I ended up putting 4 coats of Awlcraft 501 primer on with sanding in between the coats. It took quite a long time. And then I painted it with Awlcraft 2000, a two-part paint that will last forever, and I will never need to do this again. I did it myself and learned how to do it at the same time. It was very, very time-consuming. Now it's done and I am just thrilled. I still have the spreaders to do, actually. I sanded these guys down to the bare aluminum but I haven't begun any of that whole process that I just described for painting them. Unfortunately, it's going to have to wait until I get back from this next sail. I think it'll probably be too cold outside for me to paint them when I get back, so I think I'm going to have to borrow my friend's inside shop space to paint them in there. And I hope to get the mast re-rigged and put back on the boat as soon as I can. So, that's a little report from Oriental, North Carolina.